Buenos dias. Welcome back to day number 3 of our 2021 National Firefighter Cancer Symposium. My name is Alberto, and I want to welcome our guests here in the room with us in Orlando, as well as to those that are joining virtual today. It is my distinct privilege and pleasure to introduce our State Fire Marshal, Julius Hallis, who currently serves as the Director of the Florida Division of the State Fire Marshal under the authority of our Chief Financial Officer, our State Fire Marshal, Jimmy Petronis. Director Hallis has 45 years of experience in fire protection. As the Division Director since being appointed in May 2009, he is responsible for the oversight of the Bureaus of Fire Protection, Fire Standards, and Training, as well as the Florida State Fire College. Science does not happen in a vacuum, and it requires multi-stakeholder engagement and movement. The Firefighter Cancer Initiative would not happen without his leadership, and we're thankful to him. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Julius Hallis.
Thank you, Alberto Caban Martinez. And thank you to all of our hosts from the University of Miami, University of Arizona, and all around the country and the world for that matter. It's a pleasure to be with you. And so my topic today, as you can see, is assisting our firefighters to stamp out cancer, Florida style. Now, you've been hearing this week about many different approaches to working together in collaboration. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight, which has been such a blessing, is that several years ago, the Florida Professional Firefighters, which is a major state affiliate with, at that time, 25,000 members of the International Association of Firefighters. And so they went to the CFO at that time, Jeff Atwater, who was from the Palm Beach area in Florida, and he was the Chief Financial Officer. And they went to him and they showed him the video that Palm Beach Fire Rescue, Miami-Dade, Miami, all that Southeast collaborative that had started recognizing that there was a major problem. So this was several years ago, and the CFO started learning about this plight of the epidemic of cancer in the fire service, and basically brought me in and said, what can we do about this and everything. And so a lot of these partnerships started at that time. And so I want to just share with you that I was blessed after 35 years in the fire service in Sarasota and Longboat Key. I had a really pretty nice gig there on the central west coast of Florida. If you're not familiar with Sarasota or Longboat, it's just south of St. Petersburg, Tampa, where some colleagues are here today all week. And so I was blessed to start in 1974, before we even had positive pressure ventilation, breathing apparatus and everything. So I remember the good old days when you'd come out of every fire and, your snot was not very good color and what have you, and, pretty much felt like crap after most of the fires and everything. So getting into EMT and paramedic right away and going up through the ranks and making fire chief in just 18 years at the age of 38 in Sarasota. So I got to serve as fire chief in Sarasota area for over a decade. And then I had the opportunity to come to State Fire Marshal's office 12 years ago. And so for the first 6 years, we had a total of 0, a big old goose egg of grants. There were no, we just kept, where are the grants? And, we were helping other local departments try to get AFG grants and safer grants and everything, but we weren't able to get any grants. And then the firefighters, the Joint Council, the Florida Fire Chiefs Association and others, and their safety committees started to grow and started to get some success and some traction. And we learned to get with the local, House and Senate members in Florida and make sure they knew about the epidemic. So next slide, please. Would you believe it? In the next 5 years, from 2015, again, I started in 2009, so I was honest, there was no grants for 6 years. Starting in 2015 with the U, they brought us in and said, wow, we can help and work on this problem. And so the very first year, never forget, that's why it's an oddball number. We got $965,000, right, Alberto? And for the University of Miami as a pass-through grant from the Florida legislature. Well, would you believe it? After the House and Senate approved it and the governor didn't veto it, it gets put in our state fire marshal budget. I have to call Alberto and Natasha and Aaron and everybody, all the leadership, and say, well, you got this money from the legislature, but now you have to do this like 100-page grant agreement. And I feel really rotten that we have to make sure you do all these deliverables and everything. And fortunately, their legislative affairs team said, oh, don't worry, we deal with the state all the time on these grants. I said, oh, okay, great. So it's been a great partnership because it puts you in that awkward position of having, basically an interlocal grant subrecipient agreement. But look at the success, what we had. Then the University of Miami got more and more dollars over the several years to nearly $9 million to date. We got a volunteer firefighter assistance grant to help with 5 SCBA or 5 sets of turnout gear or training for firefighter safety, which started 4 years ago. And that's recurring in our recurring budget. We couldn't believe it. Once we got it up from the first year was only $150,000 and enough money for a statewide volunteer coordinator. We were able to get the dollars up to $1 million, and it was in the recurring budget. I mean, our volunteer fire officers section of the Florida Fire Chiefs, they were in shock. They said, "You're not serious? It's recurring? You don't have to go back and ask for it every year?" I said, "Yeah. Don't talk about that too loudly." We were happy about that. And so that has continued to roll. And then some of the local House and Senate members started to help fire departments that had fire stations that were not hurricane category 1 worthy, let alone cat 3, 4, or 5. And you get something like a Hurricane Michael in the Panhandle in 2018, it wiped out dozens of fire stations. They're not built up to full code. So you start to see more and more fire construction and equipment grants over the last 5 years in the likes of nearly $30 million for fire construction, renovation, and new apparatus. And of course, anybody getting a grant has to do 2 things. They have to be a participant in NFRS and what we call FIFRS, our fire incident reporting system. And they also have to go through one of our firefighter safety section, a safety compliance visit review. So it opens a door for us to go in there. We don't find fire departments, put them out of business. We don't have anybody to send in there really. So we go out and work with them, and we do a collaborative safety review and make sure they have a safety committee and some best practices in firefighter safety. So quickly, since my time is limited today, the Florida legislature special appropriation in 2017 and 18 for $1 million. Guess what that was for? That turned into our green buckets. And for those of you that didn't get to hear my testimony on that yet, just very briefly, they appropriated $1 million, and the proviso language was to mitigate exposure of firefighters to cancer-causing carcinogens. Mitigate exposure. So it was very broad proviso language. And right away, by working with the different collaboratives, I'll talk about more in my close, we decided that we're not just going to help a couple of fire departments with a second set of gear or something like that. And we were able to turn that money into over 4,500 of the green kits with input from everybody in the state of Florida that helped us come up. And instead of there was no local match. So we didn't want to help 450 fire departments, we would have had to do 450 grant agreements and have it signed by their city or county commission or fire district board of commissioners. Instead, we reached out to the University of Miami and said, would you be willing to help us to administer and deliver all these kits? And so they said, yeah, get us the list of specs and the list of departments that applied, how many they need, and a mailing address. And they worked with the vendor and delivered to 450 fire departments over 4,500 decon kits on every apparatus that flowed water. So what a success story that was with their assistance to be able to get it done in a year or two and get the money spent too. That was another challenge. And then as we started running out of kits, Firehouse Subs Foundation, Public Safety Foundation, said, oh, if you're getting low on kits, we'll help you with a small grant. Gave us 222 more kits, and we're down to less than 100 of them now. So we're actually out looking in every region for fire departments that somehow missed the opportunity to get them on their trucks. And then most recently, a firefighter cancer, our state fire marshal, CFO, Jimmy Petronas, that I report to, he is very passionate about firefighter safety and health. And when he realized the green buckets were such a success, he said, what can we do now? And so we added $250,000 in this year's budget for advanced decon. I'll talk more about that in a second. Next page. So how about this year? Is it all drying up? No, it's still rolling. It's still rolling thanks to the momentum that we've been able to pick up. The University of Miami, manna from heaven is still flowing. Another $2 million appropriation effective July 1st. So just in about 2 weeks from now.